The Iron Thunder moved through space like a wild animal fighting for its life. Taman fired the ship's weapons as fast as they could charge and watched alien ships explode in bright flashes of light. So young, pushed the engines beyond their safe limits, making the ship faster than it had ever been before. Captain, we got one. Jinho heard Taman shout over the noise of battle. A huge Velic warship was breaking apart, its hull split open like a cracked egg. Pieces of alien metal flew in all directions, and the ship died in a ball of fire, but there were still 46 more ships trying to kill the Munwu. Spun the ship in a circle so tight that the crew felt heavy against their seats. The artificial gravity could not keep up with his crazy flying. Two alien ships crashed into each other as they tried to follow the human ship around the turn. Their huge hulls smashed together, and both ships exploded. Navigator, that was amazing. Nari called out from her station, but her face was still worried. We are doing better than anyone thought possible, but we cannot keep this up forever. Jinho watched the battle on his main screen and felt proud of his crew. They were fighting like no humans had ever fought before. Each person knew exactly what the others would do next. It was like they shared one mind. The Velic fleet commander screamed at his pilots through their communication system. How are they moving like that? Their ship is tiny. Why can our weapons not hit them? What the aliens did not understand was that humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years on Earth. They had learned that big armies did not always win. Sometimes small groups with better ideas could beat much larger enemies. The human ship danced between the alien vessels like a fish swimming through rocks. Hyun-woo had studied every battle in human history, and now he used those lessons in space. He made the ship move in ways that confused the alien pilots. Stamen targeted the weak spots that So Young had found on the alien ships. His weapons hit exactly where they would do the most damage. One shot from a human laser could destroy parts of an alien ship that would take hundreds of shots to break through the thick armor. So Young worked in the engine room where the air was hot and full of steam. She fixed problems faster than they could happen and gave the ship power that should have been impossible. The reactor was glowing red hot, but she kept it running. Captain, the aliens are getting angry. Nari reported they are starting to shoot at each other by mistake when they try to hit. Jinho smiled. This was exactly what he had hoped would happen. When enemies got angry, they made mistakes, and mistakes in battle meant death. The Velic had been winning wars for so long that they had forgotten how to fight against someone who fought back. The Iron Thunder flew straight at the biggest alien ship in the fleet. The Velic admiral could not believe what he was seeing. The tiny human ship was attacking his flagship directly. This was madness. At the last second, Hyun-woo pulled the ship up and over the alien flagship. The Iron Thunder flew so close that it almost touched the enemy hull. Taman fired every weapon they had straight down into the alien ship. The flagship shook and rolled as human weapons tore through its armor. Lights went out on the alien bridge, and the admiral fell to the floor. Emergency alarms screamed through the ship, but it was too late. The humans had hurt them badly. 3 more alien ships exploded as the Iron Thunder continued its attack. The human ship was like a bee stinging a giant. The stings were small, but they were hitting in exactly the right places to cause the most pain. So Young called the bridge over the communication system. Captain, the reactor is getting too hot. We can keep this up for maybe 10 more minutes before everything breaks down. 10 minutes is all we need, Jinho replied. He could see that the alien ships were starting to spread out. They were no longer working together as a team. Fear was making them think only about protecting themselves. The Velic pilots had never seen anything like human tactics. Most species they conquered fought by lining up their ships and shooting at each other until one side ran out of ships, but humans used tricks and surprise attacks. Hyun-woo flew the ship between 2 alien cruisers and then suddenly stopped. The alien ships could not stop as quickly, and they crashed into each other. Their hulls cracked and both ships started leaking air and fuel into space. Taman was running out of missiles, but he made each shot count. His targeting computer had learned the weak spots on every type of alien ship. Now he could destroy an enemy with just 1 or 2 hits instead of dozens. Battle had been going on for 18 minutes, and 22 alien ships were dead or dying. The space around them was full of wreckage and floating pieces of metal. Some alien ships were trying to escape, but the Iron Thunder was faster. Nari listened to the alien communication channels and heard panic in their voices. The Velik fleet commander was ordering his remaining ships to retreat. He could not understand how one small human ship had destroyed half his fleet. Captain, the aliens are running away, she reported with excitement in her voice. They are jumping to hyperspace. Jinho watched the last alien ships disappear in flashes of light. The space around them became quiet again, filled only with the wreckage of the great Velik fleet. The Iron Thunder had won an impossible victory. So Young finally shut down the overheated reactor and the ship became much quieter. The crew slowly realized that they were still alive and that they had won. Everyone started cheering and hugging each other. Taemin looked at his weapons display and could not believe what it showed. They had destroyed 31 alien ships and damaged most of the others. Only 16 enemy ships had escaped and they were running away as fast as they could. Hyunwoo set course for human space, but he was shaking with excitement. They had to tell Earth what had happened. Other humans needed to know that they could fight the aliens, and Winnery started recording everything that had happened. The battle would become the most important story in human history. It would be studied by every military leader and told to every child. The Iron Thunder began its long journey home, carrying news that would change everything. Humans were not helpless against the alien empires. They could fight, and they could win when they used their intelligence and courage together. In the empty space behind them, pieces of alien ships drifted slowly. Among the stars, the Velik Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 years, but today they had learned that humans were different from every other species they had conquered. The galaxy was about to discover that when humans got angry, they became the most dangerous creatures among the stars. Captain Jinho walked slowly across the bridge of his battleship, the Iron Thunder. He looked out at the stars through the big window and felt worry in his chest. Today was the day that would change everything for humans in space, but he did not know it yet. The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of machines working. The crew of 200 humans had been traveling through space for 6 months looking for new worlds. They had found something much more dangerous instead. Nari sat at her communication station. Her fingers moved over the glowing buttons as she listened to strange signals coming from deep space. She had been hearing these signals for 2 days now, but could not understand what they meant. The sounds were not like anything humans had ever heard before. Suddenly, bright lights appeared in the darkness ahead of them. Jinho counted them quickly. 1 ship, then 10, then 20, then more than he could count fast enough. Each alien ship was huge, much bigger than the Iron Thunder, which was already the largest ship humans had ever built. The alien ships looked like silver knives floating in space. They moved in perfect lines like they had done this many times before. Their hulls shined with a metal that humans had never seen. The ships were beautiful, but also scary. Taemin looked up from his weapons station. His face was pale as he watched the alien fleet surround them completely. There was no way to escape now. The Iron Thunder was trapped in the middle of 47 enemy ships. Engineer So Young ran onto the bridge with sweat on her face. She had been working in the engine room when the alien ships appeared. Her tools were still in her hands and oil stained her blue uniform. Captain, our engines are running perfectly, she said, but her voice shook a little. We can fight or we can run, but we cannot do both for very long. Jinho nodded and looked at his crew. These were the best humans he had ever worked with. They had trained together for years and trusted each other completely, but none of them had ever faced anything like this before. The alien ships moved closer, forming a perfect circle around the Iron Thunder. Their weapons were already pointing at the human ship. Jinho could see gun ports opening along their hulls like hungry mouths ready to swallow his ship. Hulenari suddenly sat up straight at her station. Captain, I am getting a message from the aliens. The translation computer is working on it. Now the bridge became very quiet. Everyone stopped what they were doing to listen. The only sound was the soft beeping of computers trying to understand alien words. Then a voice filled the bridge. It was deep and cold like winter wind. The computer had changed the alien language into human words, but the voice still sounded dangerous and full of hate. Tiny humans, you have entered Velik space without permission. Your small ship does not belong here. You will stop your engines and prepare to be boarded. We will take your ship and make your people our slaves. If you try to fight us, we will destroy you. Complete. Jinho felt anger growing in his chest like fire. He had read about slavery in human history books. It was one of the worst things humans had ever done to each other. Now aliens wanted to do the same thing to his people. The Velic Empire has ruled this part of space for 3,000 years. The alien voice continued. We have conquered every species we have found. You are weak and small, like all the others. Submit now or die, navigator. Hanwu looked at his captain with worry in his eyes. Sir, what are your orders? The alien ships have us surrounded. We cannot run, and we cannot call for help. Earth is too far away. So Young stepped forward. Captain, I have been studying their ships. While they talk, their hulls are thick, but they have weak spots near their engine ports. If we hit them there, we might be able to hurt them. Taemin checked his weapons one more time. Sir, we have enough missiles and laser cannons to fight, but not for very long against so many ships. We can maybe last 10 minutes. Jinho thought about his choices. He could surrender and watch his crew become slaves. He could try to run and probably get shot down before they escaped, or he could fight against impossible odds and probably die with honor. He remembered stories his grandfather had told him about human wars on Earth. Small groups of soldiers had sometimes defeated much larger armies through courage and smart fighting. Humans had never been the strongest species, but they had always been the most stubborn. All crew to battle stations, Jinho said in a loud, clear voice. His words echoed through the ship, and every human on board heard them. Prepare for combat. The bridge came alive with activity. Nari sent messages to every part of the ship, warning the crew to get ready. So Young ran back to the engine room to give them more power. Taemin armed every weapon they had. Hyenwu planned an attack route that would take them between the enemy ships. Captain, the aliens are demanding an answer. Nari reported. They want to know if we will surrender. Jinho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile a Wolf shows before it fights. Send them this message. We are humans. We do not surrender. Tell them if they want our ship, they will have to take it from our dead hands. The alien voice came back, angry and surprised. Foolish creatures, you choose death over slavery. Very well, we will destroy you and take your ship anyway. 47 alien ships powered up their weapons at the same time. The space around the Iron Thunder lit up with deadly energy. The Velic had fought this same battle against hundreds of other species, and they had always won, but they had never fought humans. Before, they did not know that humans had spent their whole history fighting against impossible odds. They did not know that humans would rather die than give up their freedom. They did not know that when humans got angry, they became the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. The first alien laser beams hit the Iron Thunder, and the ship shook like it was caught in an earthquake. So Young kept the engines running while sparks flew around her in the engine room. Taemin fired back with everything they had and watched his missiles streak toward the enemy ships. Jinho stood firm on his bridge while his ship was being shot at from all sides. His crew worked harder than they had ever worked before because they knew this fight would decide the future of humanity in space. The Iron Thunder spun and twisted between the alien ships like a dancer avoiding clumsy partners. Hyenwu flew the ship in ways that made the aliens dizzy and confused where they expected the humans to fly straight. The ship turned suddenly where they thought it would turn. It kept going straight. The battle had begun, and the galaxy was about to learn that humans were not like any other species the Velic had ever conquered. The story of the Iron Thunder spread across the galaxy faster than the fastest spaceships could travel. In the crowded trading stations where aliens from dozens of species bought and sold goods, merchants whispered about the impossible battle won. Ship against 47, a Corvan trader said to his Altarian customer while they counted coins. His forearms shook with excitement as he spoke. No one has ever defeated a Velic fleet like that. The humans must have secret weapons, but the Altarian shook his tentacled head slowly. I heard different stories from the survivors. The humans used the same weapons as everyone else. They just used them better. They fought like they were not afraid to die in the great council chambers of the Galactic. Government Ambassador Yuan Su sat quietly and listened to alien leaders argue about what to do with humanity. The council had kept peace in the galaxy for 2,000 years by making sure no one species became too powerful. Now the humans had upset that careful balance by doing something no one thought was possible. The Velic representative stood up on his 6 legs. His purple skin was darker than usual, showing his anger. These creatures are dangerous to everyone, he said in his hissing Voice, they do not fight like civilized beings, they attack without warning and use tricks instead of honor at all. Zephyrion delegate buzzed her wings in disagreement perhaps. The humans are exactly what this galaxy needs, the Velic have been bullies. For too long, maybe it is time someone taught them that they are not the strongest species, but the Celestial Garden's ambassador was worried. This could start wars across the entire galaxy. Every species that the Velic have conquered will think they can rebel now. What happens when everyone starts fighting? Yun Su finally spoke up in the quiet voice that made everyone listen. The humans did not start this fight, the Velic attacked them first. All they did was defend themselves. Is it wrong to refuse to become slaves? The council chamber became very quiet. The other ambassadors knew she was right, but they were also afraid. Change was always scary, especially when it came so fast. Far away on the mining world of Corvan 7, a slave named HFY heard the story from a trader who visited their work camps. The trader spoke in whispers because Velic guards were always listening, but the story still spread from worker to worker. HFY had been a slave for 30 years. Ever since the Velic had conquered his homeworld, he had forgotten what it felt like to be free. But now he remembered as he listened to the story about humans who refused to surrender that night in the dark, sleeping halls where thousands of Corvan workers lived. In tiny spaces, HFY told the story to his friends. One human ship beat an entire Velic fleet. He whispered, they fought until they won. They never gave up. His friend Nexpal was afraid to believe it. How do we know this story is true? Maybe the Velic are spreading lies to find rebels among us. But old Zakor, who had lived longer than anyone else in the camp, shook his gray head. No, the Velic would never tell a story that makes them look weak. This story is true, and it means something important has changed on the ocean world of Altair Prime. The fish, like people, swam in great schools through their underwater cities. They had been conquered by the Velic 50 years ago and had never tried to fight back because they thought it was hopeless, but now the school leaders gathered in the deep trenches where sound could not travel to the surface. They spoke in the rapid clicking language that only they could understand. The humans showed us something important, said the eldest female, whose scales were silver with age. Small can beat big if small is smart and brave enough. Maybe we do not have to live under Velic rule forever, Commander. Duhayan received these reports on his small scout ship, the Silent Wind, while it hid in an asteroid field near the neutral zone. He was one of only 12 humans in this part of the galaxy, but the impact they were having was enormous, sir. His communication officer reported, we are receiving secret messages from 17 different species. They all want to know the same thing. They want to know if humans will help them fight. The Velacto-Hyan thought carefully about his answer. Humanity had sent only a few ships to explore this region of space. They were not ready for a war against the entire Velic Empire, but they also could not ignore species that were asking for help. Send this message to all of them, he finally decided. Tell them that humans believe every intelligent being has the right to be free. Tell them we will help those who are willing to help themselves. The message traveled through secret communication networks that the Velic did not know existed. Rebel groups on 100 worlds heard the words and felt hope for the first time in decades. On the industrial world of Mechanus, where robot workers had gained consciousness but were still treated like property, the artificial beings shared the message through their electronic networks. Freedom they transmitted to each other in binary code. The humans understand freedom in the science laboratories of the Velic Empire. Researchers tried to understand how the humans had won the battle. They studied the wreckage of their ships and interviewed the survivors, but they could not find the secret. The human ship was not special, one scientist reported to the military commanders. Their weapons were average, their shields were normal, their hull was actually weaker than ours in some places. Then how did they win? Demanded Admiral Kethvar, who had lost 3 ships in the battle. His mandibles clicked with frustration as he paced around the room. The scientist looked afraid to give his answer. I think it was not their technology that won the battle. It was something else, something we do not understand about their minds. They fought like they believed they could not lose. This was the truth that was spreading across the galaxy along with the story of the battle. Humans did not just have different weapons, they had different ideas about war and freedom and what was worth fighting. For these ideas were more dangerous to the Velic Empire than any weapon because ideas could not be destroyed by laser cannons. Ideas could spread from mind to mind across the galaxy faster than any spaceship could travel, and now millions of enslaved beings across hundreds of worlds were thinking the same dangerous thought: if one human ship could defeat the Velok, maybe we can too. The galaxy was about to learn that the most powerful force in the universe was not energy or matter or even time. It was the simple idea that all thinking beings deserved to be free. And that idea was spreading like fire through the darkness of space. 6 months after the battle that shook the galaxy, Captain Sujin stood on the bridge of her new ship, the Dawn's Edge, and looked at something no one had ever seen before: a fleet of rebel ships from 7 different species, all flying together toward the most heavily defended Velok fortress in known space. Her second in command was a Corvan named HFY, the same slave who had first heard the story of the Iron Thunder in his mining camp. Now he wore the uniform of a free being and served as her tactical officer. "Captain, the fortress has detected us," HFY reported in his clicking voice. His forearms moved over the control panels with practiced skill that still amazed Sujin. A species that had been slaves could learn to be warriors incredibly fast. When they had hoped, the fortress ahead of them was a massive structure built into an asteroid the size of a small moon. It had enough weapons to destroy 1,000 ships and had never been successfully attacked in 800 years. The Velok had built it to be absolutely impossible to capture, but Sujin had studied human military history just like all human officers. She knew that throughout Earth's past, soldiers had captured impossible fortresses by using tactics that their enemies could not imagine. "Our fleet is ready for your orders," announced Commander Hyun-sik from the rebel flagship Liberation. He was commanding a mix of Zephyrian attack ships that moved like angry insects and Altarian vessels that could operate underwater or in space. Sujin looked at her mixed crew and felt proud. The bridge of the Dawn's Edge had humans working next to Corvans, Zephyrians, and even 2 Mechanus robots who had escaped from their factory world. Everyone had a different reason for being here, but they all shared the same goal. "Today we prove that the fortress can be broken," she announced over the fleet communication system. Every ship in the rebel fleet could hear her words. "We are not just fighting for victory, we are fighting to show the galaxy that freedom is stronger than fear." The Velok fortress began firing its massive cannons in space filled with deadly energy beams. Each shot was powerful enough to destroy 3 normal ships, but the rebel fleet did not fly like normal ships. They had learned human tactics. Instead of flying straight at the fortress like every other species had tried, the rebel ships scattered in all directions. The Velok gunners could not track so many targets moving in unpredictable patterns. Zephyrian fighters swarmed around the fortress, weapons like angry bees attacking a giant. The small ships were too fast for the big guns to hit, and they carried special bombs that could damage the fortress shields. Meanwhile, the Altarian ships dove under the fortress where fewer weapons could reach them. They attached magnetic mines to the asteroid surface and then swam away through space like fish, avoiding a predator. The Dawn's Edge led the main attack straight toward the fortress command center. Sujin had studied the fortress design and found its weakness. The aliens had built it to defend against attacks from all directions, but they had not planned for attackers who would sacrifice themselves. Engineer Ming Ho called from the engine room. "Captain, we can overload our reactor and ram the fortress shield generator, but anyone who stays on the ship will die in the explosion." Sujin felt her heart grow heavy. This was the hardest part of being a human commander. Sometimes winning required people to give their lives for others. The crew knew this might happen, but it was still hard to ask. "I will pilot the ship into the target," she announced, but her tactical officer Jae-hun shook his human head firmly. "No, Captain, we need you to command the fleet. I will take a volunteer crew and make the attack run. My wife and children are already free because of what we are doing here. This is my choice to make." 20 crew members from 4 different species volunteered to stay on the Dawn's Edge for the final attack. They transferred everyone else to other ships and prepared to give their lives so the fortress would fall. The damaged ship accelerated toward the fortress shield generator while enemy weapons tried to stop it. Jae-hun and his mixed crew worked together as the ship took hit after hit but kept flying at the last second before impact. Jae-hun sent a message to the entire fleet. "Tell the galaxy that we died as free beings fighting for other free beings." Then the Dawn's Edge crashed into the shield generator and exploded in a ball of light, that could be seen across the solar system with. The shields down the rebel fleet poured through the fortress defenses like water through a broken dam. Carven boarding parties fought hand-to-hand in the corridors while Zephyrian commandos disabled the main weapons. The battle lasted 6 hours, but when it ended, the impossible fortress belonged to the rebels. The Velic garrison surrendered when they realized they could not win against enemies who fought with such determination, but the biggest shock came after the victory when the fortress commander asked Sujin what tribute the humans demanded from the captured facility. She looked at him like he was speaking a foreign language. "We do not want tribute," she explained to the confused alien. "We came here to free the species you have enslaved, not to replace you as their masters. The fortress belongs to the people you conquered, not to us." This was the moment when aliens across the galaxy truly understood that humans were different from every conqueror they had ever known. Other species fought wars to gain territory or resources or slaves, but humans fought wars to destroy the idea of slavery itself. The liberated species could not believe what they were hearing. Tekvior spoke for all of them when he asked, "But if you do not rule us, what do you want from USS Eugen?" Smiled, and her answer was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. "We want you to be free. We want you to choose your own leaders and make your own laws. We want you to help us free others who are still slaves." That is all. The news of the fortress victory spread even faster than the story of the Iron Thunder had across the galaxy. Enslaved species began to rise up against their Velic masters. Some rebellions failed, but others succeeded, especially when human advisors arrived to help on the water world of Aquarius. The fish people built submarines that could attack Velic ships from below the ocean, protected them from orbital bombardment, and their hit-and-run tactics drove the aliens away from their world. The robot workers of Mechanus used their electronic networks to coordinate simultaneous uprisings on 50 industrial worlds. The Velic could not be everywhere at once, and their empire began to crumble from within. But the most important change was not military, it was in the minds of beings across the galaxy. For the first time in thousands of years, ordinary people believed that the future could be different from the past. The Velic empire that had seemed eternal and unchangeable was breaking apart because one human ship had refused to surrender, and now millions of beings who had been slaves were learning that they too could refuse to surrender. The galaxy was discovering that revolution was not just about weapons or tactics. It was about the simple decision to say no to those who claimed the right to rule over others, and once that decision was made, it could never be unmade. 10 years had passed since the battle that changed everything. Admiral Jinho walked slowly through the memorial garden on Haven's Rest, where the hull of the Iron Thunder now served as a monument to the day freedom came to the galaxy. Old Battleship sat in the center of the garden, surrounded by plants from 43 different worlds. Corvin crystal flowers grew next to Zephyrian singing trees, while Altarian water plants created streams that flowed around the ship's base. Children from dozens of species played on the memorial ship, climbing through passages that had once echoed with the sounds of desperate battle. Now the corridors rang with laughter as young beings from across the galaxy learned together. Jinho stopped at the memorial wall where the names of every crew member were carved in stone next to symbols representing all the species that had gained freedom. The wall was written in 43 languages, but the message was the same in all of them. Here began the revolution that freed the galaxy, not through conquest, but through the belief that all intelligent beings deserve the right to choose their own destiny. Vice Admiral Nari joined him at the memorial. Her hair was gray now, but her eyes still held the same determination they had shown during the battle. She commanded the Federation defense fleet that protected free worlds from the few remaining slavers in the outer systems. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we had surrendered that day?" she asked, as they watched a group of young Velic and human cadets studying together at the nearby academy. Jinho smiled as he watched the children. Their parents had been enemies, but to them the old divisions between species seemed as meaningless as ancient history. "I think about it sometimes, but humans do not surrender. It is not in our nature." The memorial garden was quiet except for the sound of water flowing and children playing. In the distance, the towers of New Haven City rose into the sky. The City was home to 3 million beings from every known species, all living and working together. The changes in the galaxy were visible everywhere. Mixed crews served on Federation ships. Corvin engineers worked with human scientists to build better technology. Zephyrian artists collaborated with Altarian musicians to create new forms of beauty. The old Velic Empire was gone completely. The purple-skinned aliens had kept their promise to learn new ways. Former Admiral Kethvar now served as a teacher, helping other species understand how empires fell and how freedom could be protected. But the real changes were harder to see. They lived in the minds of beings across the galaxy who had grown up believing that cooperation was stronger. Then Conquest young Haijin ran up to Admiral Jinho with her class project in her hands. She was 8 years old and attended school with children from 7 different species. The diversity that had once seemed impossible was now completely normal. To her, "Tomorrow, look what we made," she said excitedly. Her project was a model of the solar system where Haven's Rest orbited its twin suns. "But this is not just our system anymore," she explained proudly. "This is how all the free worlds work together. Like planets around stars." Jinho knelt down to look at her project more closely. "How do they work together?" he asked gently. "Well, the planets all have their own paths, but they help keep each other in balance," Haijin said with the confidence of a child who had never known a galaxy divided by fear. "And the stars give light to everyone equally." This was the lesson that the galaxy had learned from humanity. The universe was not a place where the strong ruled the weak. It was a place where different kinds of strength could work together to create something beautiful. Commander Du Hyan arrived at the memorial with news from the Outer Rim. "Sir, we have received contact requests from 3 new species beyond the frontier. They have heard stories about the Federation and want to join." Jinho nodded. This happened regularly now as word of the free worlds spread to distant parts of the galaxy. Species that had hidden from the great empires were finally willing to make contact with other intelligent beings. "What did you tell them?" Jinho asked. "The same thing we tell everyone," Du Hyan replied. "That freedom is not something we give to others. It is something beings must choose for themselves. We can help, but we cannot do the choosing." This was the wisdom that humans had brought to the galaxy, along with their refusal to surrender. True freedom could not be imposed from outside. It had to grow from within, like a plant reaching toward light. As the suns began to set over Haven's Rest, the memorial garden, filled with soft golden light, beings from across the galaxy came to pay their respects to the ship that had started the revolution. A group of former Velic slaves, now free citizens of their own world, placed flowers at the base of the memorial. They whispered prayers in their own language, thanking the humans who had shown them that resistance was possible. Mechanist robots stood silently with their electronic minds processing the historical data stored in the memorial computers. They had calculated that the odds against the Iron Thunder winning its battle had been 2,847 to 1, but humans had never been good at accepting impossible odds. Zephyrian children flew around the memorial ship on their natural wings, singing songs that their grandparents had been forbidden to sing under the old empire. The melodies spoke of freedom and hope and the courage to fight for what was right. Jinho looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Each point of light represented worlds where beings lived free from fear and oppression. The galaxy that had once been ruled by empires built on conquest was now home to thousands of species working together. The Iron Thunder had been just one ship with 200 crew members, but their decision to fight instead of surrender had changed the destiny of trillions of intelligent beings across the galaxy. Joined Jinho as they watched the stars appear. The memorial garden was peaceful, now filled with the quiet conversations of beings from many worlds. "What do you think the crew would say if they could see the galaxy now?" Jinho thought about his friends who had died in later battles and those who had lived to see the birth of the Federation. They had been ordinary humans doing an extraordinary thing. "I think they would be proud," he said finally, "but I also think they would be surprised. They thought they were just defending their ship. They did not know they were starting a revolution." The truth was that revolutions often began with simple decisions made by ordinary people who refused to accept that things had to stay the way they were. The crew of the Iron Thunder had made such a decision, and the galaxy had never been the same. As night fell over the memorial garden, the hull of the old battleship glowed softly in The Starlight children from dozens of worlds would grow up playing on this ship, learning that courage and cooperation could overcome any enemy. The legacy of the Iron Thunder was not carved in stone or metal. It lived in every free world, every mixed crew working together, every child who grew up believing that all intelligent beings deserved dignity and choice. The galaxy had learned that humans were indeed different from every other species, but not because they were stronger or smarter or more advanced. They were different because they carried within their culture the stubborn, magnificent belief that the universe could always be made better, and in a galaxy that had grown old and tired and accepting of injustice, that human optimism had proven to be the most powerful force of all. 1 year after the Iron Thunder changed galactic history, Ambassador Minji walked through the great halls of Havens, Rest, the neutral world where 43 species had gathered to decide the future. The old Galactic Council was gone, destroyed by the wave of freedom that humans had started. The building was different from the old council chambers. Instead of thrones arranged by species strength, there were simple chairs in a circle. Every delegate sat at the same level because humans had taught the galaxy that all intelligent beings were equal. Minji carried with her the hopes of not just humanity, but of every species that had won their freedom in the past year. The humans were still newcomers to galactic politics, but their influence was everywhere. As she entered the main assembly hall, conversation stopped and all eyes turned to her. Some aliens looked at her with gratitude, others with fear, and a few with curiosity. Everyone wanted to know what the humans would do next. The Corvan delegate Tekvior stood up first. His people had been slaves for centuries, but now they were free and learning to govern themselves. We owe our freedom to human courage, he said in his clicking voice, but we do not know how to build a government that serves everyone fairly. This was the problem facing the entire galaxy. The rebellions had succeeded in breaking the old empire, but no one knew how to create something better. Many species had never ruled themselves before. The Zephyrian queen buzzed her wings nervously. Our worlds are free, but we are still afraid. The Velic fleet is scattered but not destroyed. What happens if they unite again and come back stronger? Ambassador Minji looked around the circle at faces that belonged to dozens of different species. Some breathed air, others breathed water, a few did not breathe at all, but they all shared the same concerns about the future. Before I speak, she began, I want you to know that humans are not here to tell you what to do. We are here to share what we have learned from our own mistakes. The hall became very quiet. Everyone knew that humans had a violent history on their homeworld, but few knew the details. My species once enslaved others, just like the Velic enslaved you, Minji continued. We fought wars over the color of our skin, the gods we worshipped, and the land we lived on. We made every mistake that intelligent beings can make. A murmur went through the assembly. Many aliens had assumed that humans were naturally peaceful and wise. They were surprised to learn about humanity's dark past, but we learned from our mistakes, Minji said with strength in her voice. We learned that our differences make us stronger, not weaker. We learned that cooperation works better than conquest. We learned that true strength comes from protecting others, not from dominating them. The Velic representative Admiral Kethvar stood up slowly. His purple skin was pale, and his usually proud bearing was broken by defeat. His empire was in ruins, and his people were scattered across the galaxy as refugees. Human ambassador, he said in a voice heavy with emotion, my people have ruled through fear for 3,000 years. We conquered because we believed it was the natural order of things. The strong rule the weak, that is how we thought the universe worked. He paused and looked around the assembly hall where his former slaves now sat as equals. But you have shown us a different way. You defeated us in battle, but then you helped a species we had wronged. Instead of punishing us, you could have enslaved the Velic like we enslaved others, but you chose mercy instead. Admiral Kethvar's voice grew stronger as he continued, I have studied human history as my people try to understand what happened to us. You have made the same mistakes we made, but somehow you learned to be better. How is this possible, Commander? Byung-ho stood up from the human delegation. His uniform carried the scars of many battles, but his eyes were kind. We learned because we remembered our shame, he said simply. Every human child learns about slavery and war and genocide in our past. We carry that knowledge, so we never repeat those mistakes. The assembly hall was completely silent now as beings from across the galaxy listened to words they had never heard before. We teach our children that power must serve justice, not the other way around. Young Ho continued, we learn that when we lift others up, we lift ourselves up too. When we tear others down, we tear ourselves down as well. The Altarian delegate, whose people lived in the oceans of 12 worlds, raised a tentacled arm. But how do we govern ourselves without falling into the same traps? How do we make sure the strong do not dominate the weak? Again, Minji smiled, because this was the question she had hoped someone would ask. The answer is that we govern together. Each species keeps control of their own worlds, but we work together on problems that affect everyone. We make decisions by talking and voting, not by fighting. She gestured to a document that every delegation had received. We call it the Charter of Free Worlds. It guarantees that every species has the right to live according to their own customs while respecting the rights of others. The Mechanus robot delegate processed the charter through his electronic brain in seconds. This document prohibits slavery, conquest, and forced tribute, he announced. But how will it be enforced? Through cooperation, Minji replied. If one species tries to conquer another, all the free worlds will work together to stop them. No single species will ever be strong enough to dominate the others. Again, the debate continued for many days. Some species were afraid to give up the security of being ruled by others. A few wanted to become conquerors themselves now that the Velic were weak. But most delegates understood that the human way offered something better. The final vote was taken. 37 species agreed to join the Federation of Free Worlds. Each would govern their own territory but work together for mutual defense and trade. 6 species chose to remain neutral but promised not to attack the others. The Velic were the biggest surprise. Admiral Kethvar announced that his people wanted to join the Federation as junior members. They would give up their weapons and spend the next generation learning how to live peacefully with their former slaves. We have much to learn about being free, Kethvar said with humility. That shocked everyone who remembered the proud Velic Empire. We ask for the chance to prove that even conquerors can change. The ceremony to sign the charter took place under the light of Haven's Rest's twin suns. Delegates from dozens of worlds added their names or symbols or energy signatures to the document that would reshape galactic civilization. Inji signed for humanity with a simple pen made of earth metal. As she wrote her name, she thought about Captain Jinho and his crew who had started this revolution by refusing to surrender 1 year ago. The galaxy now had something it had never possessed before, a government based on the consent of the governed rather than the power of the strong. It would not be perfect, and there would be problems along the way, but for the first time in galactic history, millions of intelligent beings could wake up each day knowing they were free to choose their own destiny, and that freedom had begun with one human ship that decided to fight instead of surrender.